Hey guys, alright, I'm back with another video. I just wanted to go over kind of my next portion of my Japan trip. So this is kind of part two of Tokyo. So if you remember my last video, I basically went from, I told you about my flight and then the Imperial Palace and meeting a cool guy named Theo. So this will be a continuation of that. The next morning, I went ahead and woke up early. I was pretty jet lagged still, but full of excitement to get out and do stuff. So I woke up and went downstairs. It was actually pretty busy for being so early. I think it was like 8:30, 9 a.m., something like that. And the guy Theo that I had been talking to and met at the very end of the night was already down there talking with another guy, and his name was Cass. We called him Cass. I think it was Kasim. And so he was from Europe, working at Amazon, and he was down here just on a vacation, same type of thing for me. Now, he had already gone up, so he started like down in Osaka, I guess, and then made his way back to Tokyo. So he had done a kind of a full circle thing. My trip is a little unique because I didn't have to go back to Tokyo like most people do when they go back to their country. I went all the way down, so I left in a different state or a different city. So I met Theo and Kasim. They were talking. They introduced me to Kasim, and then we kind of just all said, "What do you want to do today?" And I had a million things to do, but the easiest one to knock out was going to Sensoji Temple. Sensoji Temple, for those that don't know, is that big ball that, I don't know, it's like a lantern, right? And that's the one that's super famous in Japan. It was right next to our hostel in Asakusa, and so we went over there. It was still a little bit early, so there weren't a ton of people yet, and there was this alleyway which has just a bunch of stores that you can walk down, and then you could see off into the distance the actual temple and the shrine, whatever you want to call it, and the ball, right, or the lantern. So you start there, and because of the time of the season, it was just hanami branches, like sakura branches, all on every store you could see. So it was almost like enshrouded with sakura branches, just all the way down the aisle. It was a really cool sight. And Cass basically took a picture of the back of Theo and I's head, and that was a really cool picture. I liked it. Like, we were both just kind of looking out, and he was looking out, and you could just see the Sensoji shrine at the very, very distance. That was a really cool picture. So I posted that on Instagram. So we walked there. We just stopped at little shops and checked out some doodads. They had Hello Kitty stuff and shrine stuff and books and bags and everything you could imagine, just little trinkets. And just walking. I didn't really buy anything. I'm backpacking, and I had a long trip ahead of me, so I did not want to buy anything that was bulky or that took up too much space or weight. So really, I was trying to stick to stickers as my souvenirs. That way I could just put them on my laptop. It wouldn't take up any space. I wasn't carrying anything extra in weight, and that would kind of help me get through my trip without spending anything. So that was kind of a blessing and a curse. I wasn't going back home, so there was nothing stopping me from moving forward and doing whatever I want, but I also couldn't really buy stuff as well and have much souvenirs. So I didn't get any cups or shot glasses or little paintings or anything like that, anything that you could keep in your house as a reminder. So that is the first thing that we did. We got there, and then I wanted to go. I got a picture in front of the lantern, of course, and then Theo had some stuff to do. He was meeting some other people, I guess, so he had to go, and so he left us, and it was just kind of Cass and I walking around. And then Cass said, "I'm going to head out as well and go do my own thing." I said, "Okay, that's fine." So this was, I think, his last day in Tokyo. I had just gotten there. So he went out to go do something. I don't even know what. And I just stayed behind at the shrine. This shrine had been something that I had seen in videos from old J vloggers. I don't know how much you remember, but for Victor, Give Me a Break Man, Tokyo Kuni, I mean, so many people I've seen in this shrine. I'm blanking on I want to say Kev Jumba, but that's not it. His name's Kevin. He has the Just Japan podcast, and his name is Busan Kevin. Yes, I know that's a city in Korea. Or actually, no, it's not. Wait, yes, it is. Busan Kevin. But Busan Kevin is, he lived in Korea, then he lived in Japan. Getting sidetracked. Anyway, it's just a bunch of videos, older videos from people that lived in Tokyo that had filmed at this Sensoji shrine, and I had always wanted to go here. So this was kind of another magical moment that I'll never forget. And after that, I saw this like matcha mochi ice cream place. So I sat in line. It was line out the door, so I figured it'd be good, and it was. They just gave you like 5 little cubes of matcha flavored ice cream and had some of that as a treat. And then I ended up going to the Harajuku area. And so in Harajuku, there was this Galaxy like Samsung store. And BTS was really, really big at the time, the Korean K-pop band. And I actually had a BTS purple phone case. Long story, I essentially bought it so that I could sell it. And then when I got it, my old phone just happened to break at that exact same time, and the phone on eBay was selling for less than I bought it for, so I was just like, okay, fine, I'll use it. So I had this like pink phone for a long time. Don't really listen to BTS at all except for their hits on the radio, but it was still cool. I like Korean music, don't get me wrong, just BTS was not really my jam. And their whole store was just decorated out, so I just went over to the Galaxy store just to check it out. They had like a bunch of different stuff you could buy. I was thinking if there was anything Japanese, like a phone case I could buy or something, that would be cool, like maybe something Pokemon or something like that. But it was basically all just BTS'd out. And the Samsung store, the Galaxy store, was like 4 or 5 stories. So the first store was just a normal store. The first level was just a normal store with all of your, buy your cases and all that, or your phone or whatnot, setup service. And then the second floor was where you could decorate your case. So they had like a paint shop, or like you could put stuff all over, like glue stuff on your cases for your buds, like your Galaxy earphones, or your actual case for the phone. Put whatever you want on it. And there were like a bunch of, not Legos, but things you could put on. So like little stickers of hearts, or bears or cats or whatever you wanted, right? It was kind of cutesy girly, and probably meant for a little bit of a younger crowd, but regardless, I checked it out. And then the third floor was like all this entertainment stuff where you could sit on a theater and watch BTS stuff. So I was basically just there waiting for Kasim to get there, and then once he arrived, we both kind of headed out and left. We went over to Shibuya after that, and Cass, remember, he'd been here for a few days prior to me. He had met this guy named Toshiki. I don't know where he met him from, but Toshiki was actually a Japanese citizen living and working in England, in Europe, London actually. So he was coming over here and lived in Yokohama. So he was actually kind of visiting Tokyo and happened to run into Cass somehow. I don't know how. I don't think he was staying at Nui. I think we just happened to meet. And the cool thing was he knew all of Tokyo, obviously. He lived here. So he was able to show us around and took us to Shibuya Scramble. And we saw this Shibuya Scramble, obviously. He took us to the Sky Deck or whatever, the place where you could get a really good view of it. And they wouldn't let you, there was this restaurant up there where you could see a really good view, but they wouldn't let you sit there unless you bought something. So I bought like a coffee. There was this other like rooftop area where you could go see it. So there were some cool spots that we checked out. And afterwards we went over to this Miyashita Park. Miyashita Park is like a strip of just restaurants. So just outside seating. It's kind of almost like Vietnam a little bit, where it's just a bunch of seats out near the street, and it had nightlife. So we went out there, we drank sake, we had yakitori, and had a really good time out there. So, and anyway, that was my first kind of meeting with Toshiki, and we kind of really hit it off. He was kind of surprised that I could speak a little bit of Japanese. I could read signs, so he was still kind of learning English. So he loved to converse with me, and I wanted to converse with him a little bit. So we both kind of leaned on each other and had a reason for being there. And so he showed us around and made some foreign friends, and I was really happy to meet him. Later on, we actually met up again, but that's for a different video. And so he ended up going back to wherever he was staying, and Cass and I went back to Nui, and that was pretty much the night. So that was day 2 or day 3, whatever you want to call it, if you count day 1 as the me getting to Japan. And then the next day we ended up going to, or actually the next day I woke up and Cass again was talking to this other guy that was staying at Nui. And this other guy, I'm going to just call him Junk Dog. And the reason I'm going to call him Junk Dog is because that's what his Instagram handle is. He's Korean, and Junk Dog was the most outgoing guy that I'll ever meet, I think. He was very extrovert and very kind of just loud, and I guess so. He does a form of martial arts, and he was here in Japan for a martial arts competition, and he was, I think it was Taekwondo, but I could be wrong. He was here to compete in that, but he was staying at Nui Hostel. So Cass met him downstairs, and we ended up wanting to go to explore. So he just tagged along with us essentially. So we found this American food burger place, and we had some burgers, which were actually really good. I expected it to be terrible, obviously, because most people in most Asian countries or most Asian places I've been that try to imitate American food do it terribly. But they did it really well, actually, and it was a great burger, decent price. And then we went over to Akihabara. Now, in Akihabara, we just wanted to go walk around. I didn't really know what to do there, except for I knew it was the nerdy place to be. But Junk Dog definitely had an idea in mind, and he took us straight to a Maid Cafe. In fact, it was a Maid Cafe that he had been to before, and it was on the, I think, like the 7th floor or something of this building. And, Cass was really embarrassed to go up there. I was like, whatever, I don't care. So I went up there with him, or with both of them. We sat down, and that experience was something else. So basically, the maid girl comes over, and they're doing this like singing competition. So every table, the girls will come around, and they'll be kind of like your server, kind of, but they don't actually bring out the food or the drink. And they're just like, hi, I'm your girl, basically, and I'm going to do a contest for you, and we're going to sing, and I need you to vote for me. And so like each table basically was able to vote for whoever they wanted. You had to scan the QR code, or scan the QR code and vote for your favorite girl, right? She'd be like, cuto, whatever. It was really fun. It was really cringe. But anyway, so I ordered this. We had to order something. So I ordered this like treat shake thing. It was honestly pretty disgusting. But it was basically a milkshake that had just overpowered with sugar. It was just a milkshake with ice cream and then frosting and then like Rice Krispie treat things on top. It was just so overly sugary. It was ridiculous. And it was like shaped like a cat. I think they had like cat ears on the glass or whatever. And so anyway, that's what we did. We stayed there. It took like the entire contest for them to finally get me that drink, and it was terrible at the end. I didn't even finish it. We voted for the girl. I forgot her name. I think it was Momo or something. And we voted for the girl, and then we left. So that was an experience. I mean, now I can say I've been to a Maid Cafe, and I probably wouldn't have done that on my own. So thanks, Junk Dog, for dragging us to it. And then we just kind of walked around Akihabara after that, just, chilled. We actually went back one more time later in the evening. And that one we went to, Junk Dog wanted to go get a Gundam. He was super into kind of Gundam and action figure stuff. And so we went to this place where he seemed to know exactly what he wanted. And we went up, and this was like a 10-story building, and every level of the store was just a different version of nerd. So like you go to level 2, right? Level 1 is just the entrance. You go to level 2, and it's just every like card, every Pokemon card, Yu-Gi-Oh card, Magic, all these other cards I've never even seen before. Trading card stuff was all level 1, and then level 2 was like all just like, I don't even know, army stuff, I guess is the best way to put it. It was like fake prop guns and little army soldiers and just tanks and flags and jets and all this other stuff. So it's just, I guess that was like the military level for people that are into that. And then the third level was all like anime action figures. So it had like really cool Naruto stuff. It had Inuyasha. There was some cool Bleach things. There were, there was so much. All these obscure statues I've never seen. A lot of One Piece stuff, obviously. I'm not really big on One Piece, but there's a lot. The coolest thing there was a Naruto and Sasuke were like battling each other. And the way that it was shadow painted was the coolest thing I've ever seen on a figurine. I'm not a big figurine guy, so I don't have any statues or anything, and I don't really care about those types of figures or those types of hobbies. But the way that it was painted so that it almost looked 3D no matter how you looked at it. And just the shadows on everything, you could see it was painted really, really well. It was the most expensive thing there. And it was showcased at kind of at the front. It was really, really awesome. I wish I had grabbed a picture of it because I've yet to see anything like it since. But whatever that is, if you're into figurines or Gundams or any type of action figure stuff, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. The stuff that's painted really, really well and just looks really cool. It's just a step above everything else. And then the third level was all like Gundam stuff, the fourth level. And it just kept going, right? Like it's just, one was like all dolls. One was like it was like MLB stuff or baseball stuff or sports stuff like basketball and all that. And it just kept going. There was so much stuff there. Anyway, we got the Gundam thing that he wanted, and then we left. And that was basically all we did in Akihabara, was just those two things, the Maid Cafe and then buying the Gundam. And I went back later in the evening. I stayed once he left and got his Gundam. I stayed and just kind of walked around. I just wanted to go see what there was. I actually went into one of those grab, the gotcha or whatever you call them, where there's just a bunch of claw machines and those like you put your money in and then you get a little trinket. I think they're called gotcha machines. I went into one of those and played some of the games. I'm terrible at them, of course, so I didn't win anything. But you could see people, it was like an arcade, essentially. And just spent a few bucks on there, just playing games, trying to get a Gengar for one of my friends in Korea. And didn't get it, so I left. And then that's pretty much it. That was that day. And then the next day, I woke up, and that was his last day. He was actually leaving via train down to, I think, Hiroshima, I believe it was, or maybe Fukuoka. It was kind of farther south. And then he was going to finish off in Okinawa and then go back to Tokyo and leave. So he kind of said goodbye and made his goodbyes, and then he left. And we went over to the Tokyo Japanese Museum, and that was really cool. I went with Cass and Junk Dog, and we basically they had an exhibit that was like really, really old Japanese stuff. And so we saw what was normally at that museum, but they had this like where it was so old that it was stuff that was still Chinese that was coming over from Japan. So it was like a lot of Chinese artists that were coming to Japan and drawing the Japanese scenery and all the emperors and stuff like that. So that was really cool to see all those. And then we saw there was like a Buddhist exhibit as well. So we saw these like bronze statues, these hands that were really cool looking. And we saw obviously Buddhas and all that type of stuff. So those are statues. At the Buddha place is the only place you were allowed to take pictures. So all the calligraphy and the wall scrolls with all the beautiful paintings, I couldn't take pictures of, unfortunately, but we saw it nonetheless. And then on the other side, there was all the samurai stuff, which was really, really cool. So they had like full suits of samurai, all the katana and all the blades and all the swords and stuff. It was really cool. So that was awesome. That was a really cool experience to see all that in one place. And obviously, it was also raining outside, so it was perfect. It was the perfect day to do a museum. And then after that, the rain cleared up a little bit. We had some lunch, and then we went out to, we kind of split a little bit. And I went to some parks. So I went to where everybody has that Hanami celebration or Hanami parties. It was just a big park with a bunch of sakura all over the place. So I went there. I went to the botanical gardens in there, and it was just like a kind of free. You go inside, and it's like a big greenhouse. That was really cool. I have a friend on Instagram that I met at Anime Expo years and years ago, and her name's Kelly, and she is like super into plants and stuff. And I immediately thought of her as soon as I stepped in there. I'm like, oh my god, she'd be at heaven in this. So it was really cool. All the tropical plants in the middle of Japan, basically. So it was really cool to see all that. And then, and then went back home, or went back to the Nui hostel and just kind of chilled out in the common room area and talked to people and got to know them. Met this guy from San Francisco who's a coder and told him about my trip. We talked a bit and then called it a night. And then on the final day I was there, I was pretty much alone. Well, actually, I wasn't alone. This was not the final day, because the final day was actually a morning before I left my trip. So this was like the final full day. I was alone. I basically wanted to just go do stuff on my own without anybody else. I initially planned this trip to be solo, so meeting people was great, but there was also stuff that I just wanted to do alone. And so I went over to Tokyo Skytree. I walked all the way over there by myself, and it wasn't that big of a walk. It was like maybe a 30-minute walk. And I walked over to Skytree. I realized that Skytree is actually just a big mall underneath it, which makes sense. So there was a ton of stuff to eat, see, do, and the first thing I noticed, obviously, was the Kirby Cafe. I had to go in there and just took pictures of all the Kirby stuff, which is really cool. There was a Pokemon store with all these like huge, like, God, I don't even know the Pokemon because I'm not familiar with the newer generation stuff, but it had like Lugia, and it had Entei and all the legendary birds like Zapdos and whatnot, but it also had these new bird dragon looking things that I don't even know what they are, but that was really cool. And the biggest statue for Pokemon that I'd ever really seen up until that point was in Hawaii at the what was it? It wasn't Ala Moana Shopping Center, but it was the International Shopping Center or whatever. That's really just like an international market. That's not an international market. It's just kind of everything now. They had a VR section there, like a VR gaming thing. I never played it, but at the very front, it had these like probably like this tall of like a Cubone and a Pikachu and a Bulbasaur and all that just kind of sitting out front. That was the biggest statue I'd seen, anything Pokemon related up until this point. So seeing something that was like, 10 times as big as me was awesome. I'm not a huge Pokemon fan anymore, but I used to be. I played, yellow and red and blue and silver and emerald and all that. So I played the first few generations. And so that was really cool. Went to Skytree. Now, I didn't actually go up to Skytree, and the reason why is because I had already seen I was already high enough to where I could see some pretty cool views of Tokyo. And I got the gist of what seeing it from the top would look like. I'd seen Shibuya Scramble from a really high vantage point. I had seen now a bunch of kind of what I would have seen up on Tokyo Skytree had I gone up there from the 5th or 6th floor already. So it wasn't really like, I had no real desire to spend, I think it was like $50 or $60 just to see that. Don't worry though, there were other towers later on that I would go up and pay the money to see. So that's basically what I did for that day. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but walking that entire mall took a good 3 or 4 hours. So that was a lot to explore. There was like a space museum thing at the very top for some random reason, and I went through that and just kind of looked at some spaceship stuff. And then that's pretty much it for doing stuff on my own. I did go explore this other bamboo garden area in Japan. I forgot the name of it now, so sorry about that, but it's a pretty famous garden. And just word of advice, if it's a public place, including train stations, bring your own toilet paper. Bring your own toilet paper. I'll leave it at that. All right, guys, so that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. This one's even longer than the first one. So that was almost everything I've done in Tokyo. I will go ahead and stop here, and then I will continue on. My next video will be the very end of Tokyo, where I said goodbye to my friends, and I went over to Nikko. Nikko is a small mountain town about 2 hours north, and it was my first time on a Shinkansen in Japan, a bullet train. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.